Hi there, Sophie here. Welcome to the Dove Report, where I offer wisdom in a changing world and delve into the real truths of the issues at hand so we can make good choices for a better future. So one part of the reasons for my doing this is the belief that we need to create as much grassroots community as possible. We need to share information and to support each other. These are confusing times, but unfortunately, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. We need to learn how to navigate the constant barrage of information, and we've got to learn to discern between the true and reliable information and misinformation. But also we have to be aware of the diabolically crafted disinformation and even malinformation. So we've got to help each other with that, to figure out what's real or not, because that's what we want. We want to know what's real. We don't want the lie. And we just want to avoid going off on crazy tangents, because there's plenty of them out there. So we're going to have some tough decisions ahead of us. And we need to be clear and confident. We need to be clear about what we know and what we think is right. So the events playing out in the world right now are leading, I think, into further control by the players behind the scenes. And part of their strategy is to divide and polarize sections of the society against each other. So don't fall into the trap of demonizing other parts of the community. We all need all of us. They seek to divide and conquer and to control information. Now, if you've ever known someone in your life who's a master manipulator, you'll recognize the same methods at play. To control people's thinking, to brainwash people to believe their narrative, their picture of things, to make all the flow of information pass through them. So you don't want people talking to each other. That person always likes themselves to be the center that information goes through. And to create rifts between different people, to talk, like when it's an individual, if you've known someone like this, that they'll talk and they'll create division directly between the people, between the groups of people. And this is also that they can stay in control and secretly use everyone and everything for their own selfish purposes. And all the while looking like a savior or hero to the world around them. So it reminds me of a film that was made in 2003 called Corporation, which showed that by law, business corporations are legally seen as persons having the same rights as human beings. So this film went on to look at how these giant corporations, with analysis of their character and the way they behaved in society and their behavior and their treatment of people, the filmmaker declared that if a psychiatrist analysed them, they would be diagnosed as psychopaths. So the responsibility of this behaviour didn't lie with any one particular person, but the whole organisation takes on a personality of its own, and the individuals who remain working in it become part of that. So I see it as the same with what we're dealing with the powers that are in the world right now. That, like, in a way, they're like one big corporation. And it's a psychopath. And we need to understand that we're all players. There's no spectators. We're all playing a role. We have to understand that being a spectator is a role. And to stay in the role of a spectator is to abdicate your place in the universe as an individual. I think the only way through this is that everyone takes their place, which includes our taking responsibility for our share in the corruption of this world, even if it's only by being silent. So being committed to our own wholeness and maturity is the only way to become free and aware. So the evil schemes of individuals, organizations, or governments only work if we stay like children and feign ignorance. wave it all away as not our problem, not our business. Just trust those who know. But like a Punch and Judy show, whether you identify with Punch or with Judy, you have to understand that both sides are actually connected and are taking direction from the real source of the action and the writer of the script. But it's hidden from your attention because you're so caught up with the action and the lights and the music, you don't realize there's a world of information hidden behind the theatrical and tastefully arranged stage curtains. So we've got to be wise. We've got to be wise as we navigate these times. Wisdom comes from the union of difference. And it gives us greater perception. But if we allow ourselves to be manipulated by getting carried away by strong feeling, we lose perception and we play into their hand. We create more splits in the community and create more pain to fuel more upheaval, which in turn gives them more opportunity to slip things by us. So, who are they? They are the topic of this week's video, the One World Government. In talking about this, I want to give you a picture of how these ideas came into my consciousness and the journey that has taken me on. So when I was growing up, my mum got involved with a married couple she had met on her journey of spiritual seeking. The husband of that couple believed he was getting direct communication from God and asked Mum if she wanted to be involved in what God was teaching them. She said yes. So Mum believed wholeheartedly that this teaching, as it came to be called, was from God. So as a result, my mum, my sister and myself eventually moved into their home. I was 7 years old. And there began an interesting spiritual journey, but that's for another time. So I guess you could say it was a doomsday cult, though, because even though there were other bigger revelations, but the idea that God is not happy, humans make God angry, it's the end of the world and we're all going to burn was a big part of what was communicated. And this just made it seem all the more real to my mum, because she says that since being a child, she just knew it was the end of the world. So as an adult, though, I came to know the truth about the story of Jesus and his life and death. And that completely changed my life. I started to have a more positive picture about God and my place in his story. And it was very different to the one that I'd grown up with. But then while I was part of the church, I'd become part of the church as a young adult, and then a teaching swept through the church that I was going to about the mark of the beast, the New World Order, and the One World Government. It was the end of the world. Again. So it turns out a whistleblower had come out and revealed that the American government was developing a microchip designed to go into the human body. And it was connected to the barcode technology that was rolling out around the world. Each bar of the barcode had a number at the end of it. They all represented different numbers. So there were 3 longer bars, one at each end and one in the middle. And can you guess what number each of those longer bars represented? It was a 6, and another 6. And all this came with the revelation that there was this thing called the One World Government that was behind the development of the microchip technology for tracking and controlling the population. And it was in spirit likened to the Nazi rule of Germany. It entailed the setup of a centralized government for the world under the guise of the interest of world peace and all good things, but that really it was all about control and domination. And that once it was in a position of power, it would systematically bring horrific totalitarian government to the whole world. So this information came via a man by the name of Barry Smith, who was preaching extensively with great urgency. It was the end times. Now this was back in the late 80s. Barry has since passed away, but now you can see his teaching on YouTube, and I'll put a link in the description below. By that stage, of my life, Mum was also part of the church. And when these ideas came through, she was totally into it. Because, as she always knew, it's the end of the world. So Mum was my main source of knowledge about this stuff at that time. And she was reading books, going to sermons, researching, counting out the gematria, I think it's called, where you work out the value of letters, and then so you get someone's name and you can work out the value of their name. So everyone was being done, all the names of every rock, for more evidence of the Antichrist, the beast, the whore, and the number 666. I took in a lot of the information, but kind of kept it at arm's length. It was all a bit freaky, and I was young, and I didn't want the world to end, quite frankly. So I went into the background, and it sort of stayed there, a bit like a crouching tiger in the jungle of my unconscious. Microchips, 666, New World Order, always ready to send shockwaves of terror if evidence popped up in the news or real life. But life went on. The world didn't end. And I found that I needed to exercise some sort of caution of how much I dwelt on this stuff or looked at it or thought about it. Because it could take you into a dark and terrifying place. And it left you with a thoroughly pessimistic attitude to the future and gave you kind of nothing to look forward to. It's like it was very doomsday and just felt like all it had to offer was horror and nothing else. And I was on a huge journey of soul restoration in my life, and that took prime position for me. And as part of that, for psychological survival, I had to develop a more positive sense of the future. And I began to see that we need to be exercising all of our power in creating something beautiful in our lives and for the world we live in whatever way we can. And I began to see that being preoccupied with biblical end-time prophecy could actually work as a means of avoidance, stopping you doing the work you needed to do in your own life. It could give you an out, so you spend your life stuck in a kind of fearful, reactive mode and kind of almost wish the worst on the world so that you'll be proved right. So, although it all seemed true, actually living the teachings of Jesus in my life took first place, and I stopped paying attention to these ideas. And I think a lot of Christians affected by this teaching did the same. There's only so long you can remain in high alert. You've just got to get on with life. But every now and then I'd wonder. I'd see these things creeping in, and I'd see the world changing in a way that seemed to fit in with the New World Order thesis. And even just at the end of last year, before all this started, I put up a post on Facebook about people being chipped willingly. This little film that was going around of people having chipping parties, and I thought, we have to think about this. Is it okay or not? Like, should we be talking about this? Because it didn't seem to be that it's any longer a question of if, but more of when. And so, do we want it? Will we take it? You know, is all that prophecy teaching flawed, or was it just sent to give us fear? Or should we just accept what the world offers us and be nice, obliging Christians that don't get in the way, not like those annoying Christians of the past, party poopers, fear mongers? So anyway, when 2020 hit and the virus, those thoughts were there, but I was accepting everything on face value. Until finally, when I did start to delve into alternative views of what was happening, and I began to look with an open mind. As I accepted it, I found myself thrust into a world of dark fear and helplessness. An awful grasping fear, and like there just seemed to be no hope and no answer. The acceptance of the evidence I was seeing was devastating to me. I was crushed. So I had to go through a kind of a process. But what I found was that if I didn't hide from my fear, and I walked into it, my fear actually became transformed into courage. That it was no longer hiding there, like trying to keep it at bay. That once you really face your fears, they dissolve. And then that, like I say, it transforms into courage. It's an amazing feeling, I have no idea. So to look boldly and not be afraid of whatever is true. Not to try and protect any view of reality I might have that I'm holding on to. If it's flawed, let it go. So if my theories or ways of being or my identity doesn't fit with what is really true, then I have to let them crack and break off. And in doing so, become a living being again. So this is what I've come to accept as truth. That the New World Order is a benign sounding term, but it has become a recognized code word for a satanic Luciferian plan to take over the whole world. To have a one world law, a one world religion, and a one world government. A new world order. That it is totalitarian and wielding absolute control of every aspect of life and being around the whole world, property, animals, everything. The things you're finding out as you go looking now is kind of mind-blowing how much technology and control are at human beings' disposal right now. And if you've got organizations or groups of people that have, like I say, this character of a psychopath, it's not something we want to have in control and to have that kind of power. So the characters behind this movement have the patience of a predator. And they are carefully planning and executing and putting in place all the pieces right under our noses. And every time we try to call out and tell the community, they freeze like a tiger in the grass till everyone gets bored and goes back to grazing, and then they continue. So I've just looked up Barry Smith online and had a look at a video of him talking about his message. And it's all exactly what is still unfolding and is more relevant than ever, and more people are becoming aware of its truth. I encourage you to do your own research. You have to find the right streams and communities, though, because a lot of information is being censored or obscured. So it's not always easy to find. I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty new at this as a researcher. But as much as I can, I'll try to leave links that I think might be of help to you in the description below, so that you can go and pursue things and find connections. So I didn't get to my wall map this week, as I planned to do, to continue on with my wall map. If you looked last week, I had a wall map that I was going to use to make plain what I'm seeing. But I thought next week that I might like to make that the focus, my wall map. So to give you more of a picture why, in the face of all this scary information, I actually now feel more full of hope and peace than ever. And every day I can see more of the plan of the real wonderful world that is to come, and the one that the Creator has planned and is bringing into being for all of us. So during that whole journey, when I put all this information to the background of my mind, and as I was going on a whole soul reconstruction myself in my journey with God, I feel like God's been teaching me this information that I want to share with you about the pieces that make up a whole. And I feel that that I'm bringing together the information of the One World Government that I didn't want to know, and I'm bringing it together with the information about the soul and about wisdom and about how to be affecting reality from such a deep level that, so I'm not sure what I wanted to say there. Yeah, so In the meantime, the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and fill you with peace. I'll see you next week.